That's neat.
Yeah, I have one that that looks something like that. Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious.
I want to find out if this was belonged to anybody famous because Tony, me and my sister like 30 years ago.
Uh,
They made me some reggae boots too. They're made like this, but they're like boots. They call
yeah.
them reggae boots. I was going to bring those and show them to you.
Well, that's typical of. So I got to ask you this, right? So you were in the Dog Brothers shirt,
Yeah.
and you were one of the original 12,
Yes.
right? And you're Surf Dog, and so that's because you at one time you were going to be a professional surfer.
I would have liked to. I didn't pursue it. I didn't have the right avenues. I really enjoyed surfing, and a couple of my friends turned pro.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I just didn't have the sponsorship or the backing. Maybe if my parents would have backed me more when I was younger and amateur, but they took me to the beach and dropped me off every day, though.
Well, that's a certain level of support, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes they stop, pick us up like 6 hours later.
Wow. How old were you at that? How were you like in your early teens or something?
13, 14, 15,
Yeah. Okay.
16.
Well,
Are we live?
it got you out of the house.
Excuse me?
It got you out of the house.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
So how old were you when you got into martial art then?
71, I started karate with Mike Stone.
Right, yeah. What was that? Was that Shorin Ryu or something? I forget.
He gets Gojo Ryu.
Goju-Ryu, right? Okay, yeah. And I read that that you actually met Bruce Lee live and in living color.
Yes, yes.
Through Mike Stone?
Excuse me?
Through Mike Stone?
Well, Mike Stone was the teacher. He was selling tickets to the Four Seasons tournament at the Elks Lodge in Long Beach. My parents bought tickets for us all to go. Me and my mom and dad went.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Mike Stone was the sponsor or the promoter, and Chuck Norris were the promoter. And Joe Louis fought that night. He won the tournament, Joe Louis.
Okay.
I have a really good memory of seeing Joe Louis and Bruce Lee standing over there talking. And, I went up and said hello to Bruce Lee, but it wasn't a big deal because he was still alive. And,
Right. Yeah.
it was,
Yeah. Were your mom and dad into martial art?
No, not really. They just supported my martial arts.
Okay. All right.
But started like 8 at night, and then it went till like 1 or 2 in the morning. And I was surprised because my parents didn't make me leave. We stayed till it was over, and I had school the next day.
That's pretty cool. Okay, so you started with Mike Stone. So I guess then you like stayed with that, got your black belt and all that stuff and what have you?
No, I didn't get a black belt. I got a yellow belt with Mike Stone, and then my parents had a little drive to drive me to Huntington Beach. That's where his studio was.
Uh-huh.
He had a school in Los Alamitos, and I used to ride by his studio in Los Alamitos on my bicycle. And then there was a music store across the street, and then the magic shop next door to the music store. And I ended up taking guitar lessons, and then that didn't stick. I took magic lessons, that didn't stick, and then I took the karate lessons, and then that stuck, I guess.
So when did your affiliation with the Norris stuff? When did that happen?
Well, Mike Stone moved to school to Huntington Beach off Golden West, and then that's when my parents started driving me there to learn. Mm-hmm. And then you need to find a school closer to the house because it was a little bit of a drive from Los Alamitos to Huntington Beach. Mm-hmm. I ended up finding the Chuck Norris chain studio over there in Lakewood off Del Amo and Lakewood, or Paramount and Del Amo. It was on the corner of Paramount and Del Amo. And the main instructors there were George Dolby and Terry Updike. And Chuck Norris would come around like once a month. I think he had 4 or 5 schools at the time.
Right.
And I think Chuck's first school or his main branch was the one in Torrance. But then after a while, he got paid to put his name on the schools. And then after a while, they took his name down because they didn't want to pay him anymore. And the school switched to a Mudakan school. Mudakan.
So would there have been a substantial difference then, switching from a Tang Soo Do to a Mudakan school?
Yeah, it was a little bit different because the Gojo Ryu was harder, stances and firmer blocking and everything, and then the Tang Soo Do was more kicking, and I liked that. And yeah, we made the transition, but I had a yellow belt from Mike Stone, but as soon as I went to Chuck Norris, they promoted me to a blue belt.
Okay.
And then the next belt was green belt, and then they had red belt instead of black belt. It was red belt. Or, instead of brown belt, it was red belt and then black belt. Instead of brown belt, it was red. I'm not sure if they still have red belt in Tang Soo Do ranking.
I think I've seen the uniform sometimes with like a red trim.
Yeah, that's the red belt, and that's like the equivalent of a brown belt.
But then do they have an actual black belt, or is it like a navy blue belt or something?
Well, what happened, I had the blue belt, and then they told me I can't wear that no more because the main guy in Korea was wearing the dark blue belt or whatever.
I see.
So they changed their coloring, and then I went to green belt.
Right.
And then I kind of drifted away from Tang Soo Do and practiced in my garage and surfed a lot. And, I always wanted to be like Bruce Lee, because I saw Enter the Dragon when it first came out with my grandmother. It took me in 73 or 70, right when it came out. I went and saw it at this theater right by Knott's Berry Farm. The theater's still there. It was right next to sort of Ripley's Believe It or Not. And it's still over there by Knott's Berry Farm, the theater. I'm not sure what kind of movies they show there anymore, but every time I drive by there, I think about it, the first time I saw Enter the Dragon.
Right. Had you seen any of the other movies before that?
What, Five Fingers of Death?
No, like The Big Boss or Fist of Fury or any of that stuff?
Yeah, I saw all the Bruce Lee movies leading up to Enter the Dragon. That was like the masterpiece, But Five Fingers of Death, I think I saw that before I saw Enter the Dragon. And that one, I really liked a lot. The guy doing the hand conditioning in the hot sand.
Yeah.
His hands would start glowing before he fought. Showing off, and and Showdown in Little Tokyo.
So I read also that you spent some time back in that era in Wing Chun, was it?
Yeah, I went from the Tang Soo Do and training myself until I found a Kung Fu school in Long Beach. My friend told me about this Kung Fu school in Long Beach, and then it didn't have a phone or anything. You'd have to go down there and knock on the door, and the guy would crack the door open, and most of the time he'd tell you to leave and come back later, just to try to test you.
Yeah.
Patience. And then I ended up joining that school. It's called Jeet Kune Do. He was a Chinese guy. He looks kind of like Bruce Lee a little bit, and I think he kind of played off of that. But he had a Hung Gar, Pak Kwa, and Wing Chun background. So Jeet Kune Do consisted of Hung Gar, Wing Chun, and Pak Kwa. But I mostly learned the Wing Chun aspect and some Hung Gar. But he was trying to be like Jeet Kune Do because he called it Jeet Kune Do, the way of the flowing fist.
Okay.
Instead of the way of the intercepting fist.
Yeah.
He has a following in Long Beach, and they're more traditional, along the traditional lines,
Yeah. When you were training yourself in your backyard, what constituted your training program? Just the stuff that you had done before?
Yeah, this was like probably 72, something like that. I just go out in the garage and practice every kick I ever learned, 10 or 15 kicks of each kick. And I made a pair of sticks. I still have one. After I saw Enter the Dragon, I went home and cut some brooms, and then I put black electrical tape on both of them. So I made a pair of black sticks when I was like 13 years old. I broke one of them because, the broom handles break easy, but I still have one of those sticks at home, and it's still wrapped with black electrical tape, I was
What
listening
what
to my
what what do your
parents, and
kids think of that? What do your kids think of that?
I don't know. It hasn't really soaked into them yet. Richardson posted some nunchucks the other day, and it got me thinking about all the years I practiced with nunchucks too.
Yeah.
And I made my first pair of nunchucks in 1973. I have them at home, and I used to carry them to school with me in my pocket. That's before they were a felony. They used to be a felony, or before it was a felony, and then they became a felony in California to carry nunchucks, so I stopped carrying them.
Yep. Yep.
But
Yeah.
and I don't think I ever wanted to pull them out and actually hit somebody with them, but it was more of just security, I guess.
Mm-hmm. All right. So now, how long do you spend on your own then, or in the Lao Kun Do stuff? How long did you spend with them?
4 years.
Okay.
I was training Law Kun Do, and he only had 3 tests. He had blue sash, or white sash, blue sash, and brown sash.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to do hard horse stance 15 minutes and crane stances on each leg, 3 minutes on each leg, and that was just the beginning of class. And it was good training, good physical, mental,
Right.
good traditional kung fu training, knuckle conditioning, arm strikes. I still do a lot of knuckle conditioning to this day, and arm strikes,
Yeah.
palm conditioning on the Wing Chun dummy.
Uh-huh.
I like to practice all my traditional arts, and then I try to do everything, all the modern stuff too, and just blend it. And some days I just practice what I want to practice. I don't.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. With a background like yours, right? If you're in conversation with another MMA judge, do any of these guys have a similar background?
There's a couple that have a background. Chris Lee, he's out of Florida, but I think he's more of a karate guy. And there's Sal. I'm not sure exactly his background, but I know he's got an extensive martial art background too.
Okay.
And there's Glenn Throwbridge in Vegas. He actually went and got a blue belt in jiu-jitsu because they were always squabbling about the judges not knowing what they're looking at and everything. He actually got a blue belt, but then, I resented a lot of time because a lot of the people weren't actual martial artists that were judging. And
how would that happen?
Just like they were grandfathered in from boxing, or they part of the whole thing, and they got seated, so to speak.
Right.
Well, I guess they were the closest probably to knowing anything about judging at the time.
Right.
It was the best they had. But Dana White used to always bag on the judges and everything, and I used to have to suck that up. And I wanted to go talk to him. I've talked to him a few times, but I never got to talk to him about my martial art background.
Mm-hmm.
I think they just kind of included me with all the other people. They may have thought I came from the boxing judges because I have a broken nose. I look like a boxer, and they may have bothered in with those people.
Yeah.
But I was hoping Joe Rogan would have gave me a plug once in a while and say, "Oh yeah, but there's this one judge, Lester Griffin, that kind of knows what he's looking at." Never.
So the kung fu stuff, you do that up until you're what, 17 or so?
No, well, karate. I practiced the karate from 16. After I went to Chuck Norris and Mike Stone in the 73. Mike Stone, and I got the yellow belt in 71. Went to Chuck Norris in 73.
Right.
And then I went back to Chuck Norris in 76 when I got my driver's license. I started driving myself there. Okay. But it wasn't stimulating enough or something. It just wasn't, or I wasn't getting the stimulation that I needed, or I wasn't being taught the katas and forms where I could get the belt promotions, And so I kind of got frustrated with that. And that's when I was practicing myself and training myself until I got with the Law Kun Do around 83. So from 76, 77 till 83, I was mostly training myself at home in the garage and surfing all the time.
Okay. All right. So then, when does Jeet Kune Do start enter into the picture?
Well, when I was training, I was getting ready to take my blue sash test with Law Kune Do, and you have to run like 3 miles, hard horse stance, crane stances, and then there was some forms involved, hurricane hands. And then with that instructor, he taught me his Wing Chun dummy form, and I did it for a demo, and then I did the butterfly knife demo for him and a nunchuck demonstration. Every year he would do an anniversary potluck and sell tickets to it, and then it was potluck too, so he made out on that. And us all do different demonstrations. But to get us ready for the demonstrations, he would designate what we were going to do for next year's demonstration. For a whole year, we're getting ready, but to do your whatever you were doing for the demonstration, you had to pay for private lessons.
Whoa.
So we paid for private lessons so we could be in the demo and learn something specific for the demo. But it was kind of neat because I went to group classes like 2 or 3 times a week, and I took 2 private lessons a week for like 5 years. I was spending like $250 a month on martial arts. This was in the 80s.
Wow.
But I could afford it then. And the lessons were like $30 an hour. But, it was like I could have had a Porsche or a Ferrari by now for the money on martial arts in the 80s.
Yeah.
So I was looking through Black Belt magazine, in the back one time when I was training Law Kune Do, and I seen an ad, Progressive Fighting Systems, Paul Vunak, and it was like 4 blocks from my house. I was on 4th Street, and Vunak was on 11th.
Yeah.
So 7 blocks from my house, Paul Vunak was training in his driveway, and I started going over there, and I was going to Law Kune Do still too, and Paul Vunak. And then I felt bad, because Law Kune Do, they were traditional, and they didn't like if you were training somewhere else, and then they found out that I was training with Paul Vunak. And so the teacher, he said it was disgrace in his face. That's what he told everybody. But it's like I had to do what I wanted to do. I always wanted Jeet Kune Do. When I found it around by my house, it was like I had to go there. And then so I dropped out of Law Kune Do, but it was kind of on good terms. And I went back to a couple of their anniversary demonstrations over the years. I went back and watched my friends that were still involved with Law Kune Do. So I left pretty much on good terms after he got over me leaving.
Did he know who Paul Vunak actually was, or was he just upset that it was a different school?
Well, if he didn't know who he was then, he found out, he probably did some research on his own and found out, but I think he's a little jealous, He lost a good student, because I was a good student for like 4 or 5 years with him.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot there, though, and I still practice a lot of the stuff I learned from there, and I still hand it down and teach it if it's needed to teach a student to get them over to a certain point. So, yeah, I got with Paul in 87. Yeah, 87. I have certificates. I can't find them. I was going to show them to you from 87, 88. I went to a bunch of seminars with Paul Vunak, Sequoia retreats.
Right.
I was in his Wednesday class.
Okay.
He had a class for a while with Bill Gay and a bunch of those, Chris Marcus and Larry, all these guys, but then something happened and then he dissolved that class. And then the class I was in that was right before that one, that became the advanced class. And then, I sparred with Paul one time. We showed up. He forgot that he didn't call us to cancel the class, and he sparred with us, me and Mike Volts. Hey, Mike, what's up? If you're out there, and then Savat kicked me in the head, and I had a headache for 3 days.
Is that what propelled you to go study Savat also? Because you trained under both Salem Asli and Nicholas Sagnac, right?
Yes, correct. I have. Yes, I have. That probably inspired me to do that. And then all the talking I hear, the stories of Daniel Doobie, how he moved just like Bruce Lee from the waist down. Stories. So it was like, I got to learn more Savat. One time I showed up to do a lesson with Vunak, and then Mark Denny was there, and he gave me like a private lesson in Savat. That was before Mark Denny left, Paul. And some good times back then, you know, training with those guys.
Yeah. What do you miss? What do you miss the most about those days, huh?
Yeah, I kind of miss a lot of those days, you know. It was a lot of fun going to Paul's seminars. He would have a seminar every couple months, and I would go, and then I was in his regular group class too.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterward, he would have the beach parties afterward. We'd go down to Bolsa Chica and have a barbecue or a bonfire and have a good time afterward. So, yeah, Paul would have the seminars, and then he had Jerry Poteet there with Fran Joseph one time.
Yeah.
And they stood there and watched the whole day. And then another time, James DeMille showed up, and he let everybody feel his 1-inch punch. Like, everybody got in line to feel the 1-inch punch, you know? And I was like, I just stood there on the side and watched him do it to everybody. And I studied the way he did it, you know?
Yeah.
And then that helped me more than actually feeling it, you know? But I just stood and watched and studied. And then there was another lady, he brought the Touch for Health lady one time, and I still do that. It was a program that he'd have guest instructors come. He still does that to this day.
Yeah, he does.
Bringing guest instructors.
Well, he still has like the bonfire stuff too on the beach, doesn't he?
Yeah, they usually do some kind of get together or something after his thing. He was doing them at San Juan Capistrano like 2015 or 16. I think he was doing his things there at San Juan Capistrano, and then he moved them to another park.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to go to the one last year, but I just didn't get a chance to go, and it was quite expensive.
Ah. Hey, your old buddy Richard Rycroft is saying hello to you.
Hey, Rich, how's it going, man? Long time.
Yeah, see what Lester Griffin and Richard Rycroft, that's some old school right there.
Yeah, Rich, he was training with Burton before me, I think at UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
He was part of that.
Was it UCLA or USC? I don't remember.
It was one of those. I get them mixed up too.
Yeah.
UCLA, one of those.
Yeah.
Well, they still have a group there too. They have a group of martial artists, Jeet Kune Do people.
Oh, do they really?
I think the guy, he's doing the cognitive thing with the cognitive Kali.
Right, that's true. Paul. Gosh, I always mess up his last name. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. But listen, here's the thing I found out. So you did the Savate, but then you went down into the place. It used to be Van Owen or something, the Muay Thai school that was like Muay Thai of America or something. Is that where you Muay Thai?
I was starting to kind of drift away from progressive fighting systems a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went down to the Thai gym in Long Beach, and Omre Ban. It's a Muay. It was Muay Thai, he said, but I found out later it was Muay Khmer in Cambodian.
Yeah.
You know, Omre told me he escaped from Cambodia into Thailand. You know, and then so. But yeah, I was learning Muay Khmer really, but I thought I was learning Muay Thai all those years. And then I trained there 2 years, you know, and learned a lot. And then I started training at the Insano Academy in like 91, 92 when I would go up there for the Salim seminars.
Right.
And let's see, there was a Kali seminar. I finally got in the Kali class. I remember the first day I ever trained in Guru's Kali class. Like I got in from Mark Denny got me in, and he almost like made me, you know, come and say, you're going to go do this class. You're going to be my, and it was at the Marina Del Rey off Glencoe, that school, right down the street from Del Taco.
Yeah, you remember.
We Del Taco afterward.
Yeah.
And actually, I would sleep in my van right behind Del Taco many times.
No, really.
A wood pile right there that somebody sold firewood right next to that Del Taco, and I'd park right next to that wood pile, and I would always worry if they had an earthquake, that wood pile was just going to cover my van with wood.
Yeah. Oh my God. That is the, so Ray Rosales is saying hi as well.
Who is it?
Ray Rosales.
Hey Ray, what's up, bro?
And Sean Foon is confirming it was the USC Kali Club.
Oh, USC. Okay.
USC, yeah.
All right, we'll get that straight from now on.
But here's the thing that I find interesting, because at least probably like the past couple of years or so, Sifu Asano has been doing stuff in the Cambodian kickboxing.
Yeah, and it was a beautiful thing too. It was the summer before last. I went up there for Omre's seminar, because I saw he was teaching, and I wanted to go and train and pay respects and everything. And took my son up there. He was 17 then, and we got to train all for 2 hours with Omre, and there was only like 6 or 8 people there.
Yeah.
What was the beautiful thing? Guru Dan was sitting there, and he watched me train with my son for 2 hours.
Wow.
He sat, and they have it on videotape. I want to buy the videotape and see if I'm in it. Well, another thing that was cool after that seminar was over, we're out in the parking lot, and Guru Dan's riding around one of those scooters that was on every corner there for a while. Those electric scooters they have on every LA. Well, Guru's riding one of the rows around the parking lot behind the academy there, and then I started riding somebody's skateboard, had a skateboard, and I started riding it, and then they were videoing, and I was riding the skateboard, and Guru was riding the scooter. Cookie, the girl Cookie, was videoing us, and I would love to get a hold of that video.
Oh my God!
Running around, and Guru's going in and out of me with the scooter, and I'm going around him with the skateboard.
Oh man, that's too much. But that's really full circle though. That you trained the Muay Khmer way back then, and then he gets into it, like a couple of decades later, huh?
Oh, I know. 20 years later, because I was training Omre from 88 to 91.
Right.
And then I Master Chai, I went to train all the Master Chai seminars. I did like 18 seminars with Master Chai in 2 years. I was there every month, like for at least one seminar. Oh, I watched Brandon Lee take his Thai test. I was there that night. There. Randy Browning. There was a whole bunch of people there, and Burt Richardson was there, and Mark Denny was there.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Mark Denny was taking his Thai test the same night with Brandon Lee and Shioshi, and there was one other person. But for some reason, Master Chai told Mark to sit down. And,
if memory serves me correctly, Mark Denny, Burt Richardson, and I took our Thai test at the same time.
Mark Denny and you and Burt Richardson?
Yeah, and somebody else.
Because Mark told me he took the test 3 or 4 times, and then Chai, for some reason, didn't like his movement or something. I don't know.
Yeah. The first time around, it was, gosh, I can't remember who else it was, but it was me, Mark Denny, Burt Richardson, and somebody else. And I think out of the 4 of us, he just let me and Burt complete the test.
I see. Because he would have you stand up and move or shadow box, and sit down. He'd see you just move and want you to sit down.
Yeah. So I saw something in doing my research, something about you traveling to the Philippines to do a movie.
Yes, that was because of Burt Richardson. He hooked me up to work on the movie Heat Seeker. We were only there about 5 days, but the first time we got there, everybody had to go shoot their fight scenes except for me, and then I went on a hike to the park, and I found this old man there training, and it happened to be Tatong Elustrissimo. I have a bunch of video of him and I training together, and Henry, another guy, Henry, he's old now like us all, and he was teaching me stuff too, and Henry's pretty well known over there now too, and there's a couple other.
That's hilarious. And Chad Stahelski was part of that group that went to the Philippines, huh?
Yes, he was. Chad, he was like ambitious, I could tell. Mm-hmm. Just from my memories back then. We were practicing our fight scenes and stuff, and I just could tell he got into it a little more, and then he would put some yelling, and I was like, man, I wish I yelled too after I did my man, I should have yelled a little more. Yeah. But he seemed like really out for himself a little bit, and like real ambitious type. because I saw him and Burt Richardson having a heated conversation on the roof one day, and I didn't know what it was about, but you know.
Well, whatever. And John Machado was in that movie as well.
Oh, John Machado, Jahi Zuri. There was a couple other guys in that movie. Earl White.
Really?
Al Dacascos, I think. Earl White.
No way.
Ever heard of Earl White? He was really good. He was in that movie too.
No.
Kind of a B movie.
Yeah, yeah. I was in a movie. I was in a movie with Al Dacascos' son Mark.
Which movie was that one?
It was. It's called Only the Strong.
You were in that?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to watch that again.
Yeah.
Are you one of the gang members?
What else? What else? I definitely wasn't the girl's love interest or anything.
Yeah, I love that movie, and it was, you know, a good movie. The music from the movie, I would play at my school, you know, and train to it.
Yep.
And did. I dabbled with capoeira a little bit. You know, at the academy, they had a guy teaching capoeira there for many years, but the class didn't start till, you know, after the CLOT class.
Oh yeah, the but Bonaco guy, I think was that his name? Do you remember?
Class like twice. They warm up for a half hour and train for an hour. It was an hour and a half class. It started at like 9 o'clock till 10:30 at night. It was really cool back in those days, is because we got to go to dinner every night with Guru Dan.
Yeah.
Every Tuesday, go to dinner with everybody.
Hey, look here! Somebody else is saying saying hello to you.
Hello.
Burt Richardson.
Oh, hi, Sifu. How are you doing? I got to come over to Hawaii and see you.
Yeah, well, we got to get all this mess out of the way before anybody can get back on the road, huh?
So yeah, we're still. Where are we? Well, I met Paul Vunak, and then I went to the Thai school for a couple years.
You went to the Philippines with Burt in '94. When did you start training with him?
I think around 92, probably. Mark Denny introduced me to Burt Richardson in his backyard.
Ah, I see.
Because Mark wanted me to train with Burt because he wasn't quite fully certified yet under Guru. So he sent me to Burt to learn from him. And, you know, I'm grateful for that because I was able to learn from Burt Richardson and Mark Denny both.
That's not bad.
No, and then you know, I feel like I should be called Lucky Dog. I was going to say because I'm Lucky Dog, but I feel so fortunate all the people that I have been able to train with over the years, and just, you know, very fortunate. I wish though maybe I was a little more ambitious, because when I was 16, I could have jumped in my car and drove up to the old Torrance Kali Academy if I was really ambitious back then, because it was just right up the freeway, not too far from where I lived.
Right.
Torrance, you know, the Torrance Academy.
Yeah, you would have had 8 years of training there.
Yeah, I would have been able to start like when Chris Kent started, you know, back then. Or maybe a little after that.
A little after Chris, yeah, because he came from the backyard.
Yeah, this would have been 76, I'm thinking.
Yes, well, they opened up in 74. I think Chris was the last person to join the backyard group in 73. So if you'd have gone up in 76, because they closed in 84, that's when they split off into the IMB and the Inasano Academy, right? Yeah. Yes,
IMB, Insano Academy.
Yeah.
I met, Mark Denny, he left Paul Vunak, and I was still training there, and then I went to the Thai gym, and I hadn't seen Mark Denny for a long time. I went to the Celebrity Theater where they did Muay Thai fights. They had a riot there one time. I don't know if you ever heard of that, the Celebrity Theater Muay Thai fight riots.
No.
Luxon was fighting, I think, that night, and people started throwing chairs and everything.
Whoa.
But yeah, I ran into Mark Denny that night. I was like, "Hey, Mark, what's up? You know, I haven't seen you for a while," and got his phone number. And then I started going to his house in Hermosa Beach off 3rd Street when he lived off 3rd. And I'm training, learning Pakiti Tersha, learning, you know, all kinds of stuff. Whatever he wanted to teach me, I was ready to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And
so that's how you got into the Dog Brothers stuff then.
Yeah, because I ran into Mark at the Thai fights, got his number, because I always heard that you could learn more from the second guy in charge sometimes.
Yeah.
Like the second guy in charge with Vunak. It's like, oh, I want to learn from him. I could probably learn more from him than I could from Vunak if I pick his brain enough. Sure enough, I learned a lot from Mark Denny. Mm-hmm. There's stuff he taught me that I still do, and he would be surprised, you know, if I sat down and told him and talked to him, told him everything that I practice and still do.
Yeah. Now, with all of this, when and where did you find time to train in jiu-jitsu with Machado?
Oh, that one, Mark Denny, you know, he wanted me to have the edge in the stick fights at one time on the ground.
Yeah.
So he paid for some private lessons with me but it wasn't the Machados, it was Cesar Gracie.
Ah.
And Cesar was only a blue belt then. And then I took 2 or 3 private lessons from him. Mark Denny paid for them, so I'd have the edge, you know, at the gathering. Yeah. But I actually, at that gathering, I don't even think I ended up on the ground and did jiu-jitsu. There was one I did a judo throw, but that wasn't learned from them. I just instinctively did a judo throw and got a fang choke one time at the gathering. Everybody was happy, you know. They're like, "Where'd you learn that?" I go, "I don't know. I just pulled it off."
All right. So now tell me how you came into the judging into that area, because when did that start? That started in the 1990s as well, right?
Oh, when I started judging, probably. Yeah. When I started judging was like 90. The late 90s, maybe 99, right before my son was born.
Okay.
King of the Cage came over here to Saboba Casino, and the promoter of King of the Cage, he came to my school one day. And he wanted me to be involved with this thing. He checked all the schools in town. He said I was the closest thing to anything like to do with MMA, you know, and I agreed. Right. And so he started having me help him out with his promotions. And then he asked me to judge with Eddie Millis one night. And I go, sure. And then I kept bugging him, can I judge again? And can I judge again? And every time he goes, sure, Lester. And he goes, you know what? I'm just going to make you permanent judge for King of the Cage. And I go, all right, cool. Before I ever judged for the athletic commission, you know.
Right.
Well, there was a fight with Mark Hall. I don't know if you heard about it. Ken Shamrock and Mark Hall had a fight at Saboba, and it wasn't in the cage. And over by the bathroom. And Ken, he beat up Mark Hall pretty bad, and there was a big blood stain on the floor. And then they lost the videotape. The casino did it for Ken Shamrock. They lost the videotape on purpose so that Hall wouldn't have a lawsuit. And they talked about that for years, that fight.
Yeah.
But I didn't see it. I was over by the cage judging, and I didn't get to see the fight. I seen the melee. I seen the blood stain afterward on the ground. Shamrock, he would be almost the king of the cage, Ken Shamrock, and you know, he got like he was sitting right there by me every time, and it was like it was no big deal anymore. He wasn't like the celebrity. Mm-hmm. I wasn't glad to see him anymore after a while. It was like, oh, just Ken Shamrock. But
but you also coach people for King of the Cage? You coach your own fighters for King of the Cage?
Yeah, for a while I had 3 or 4 fighters fighting on every King of the Cage show. And then it got to be where like I have too many fighters and I'd want to judge too.
Right.
And then you can judge all the fights that your fighters aren't fighting. And I go, okay.
Yeah.
But usually the fight before my fighters fight and the fight after, I would skip judging too, so I could walk out with my fighter and go back and talk after his fight too. Mm-hmm. But then one time I had like 4 guys fighting on the same card I was judging, and then they were arguing like, we don't want you to judge tonight because you got too many fighters fighting. And I was like, I'll just pull my fighters off the show. I told them I wanted to judge, you know. And they go, it's cool. you could just judge the fights. Your fighters are not fighting. And I go, okay.
Right.
I'm ready to pull all my fighters off the card if they weren't going to let me judge.
So in the world of judging, is it a big deal to get a Nevada state license?
Yeah, it is. It takes three people to recommend you.
Uh-huh.
And so I had 3 recommendations, and that's kind of what helped get me in. But I had built up a little bit of a reputation too, because back then there wasn't a lot of people judging and qualified judges, so they would use whoever was busy judging the most and who had a reputation.
Right.
So I had a pretty good reputation, I guess, for just knowing what I was looking at, and then my experience of martial art and stick fighting, all the different arts I'd been exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
But, after judging for years, I thought about it, like, who would be the best judge right out of the box? And I always thought it would be a Jeet Kune Do instructor because they'd been exposed to so many arts already.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Hadn't gone through the training yet with John McCarthy or any kind of actual judge training or know the criteria. But then you could, right out of the box, I was thinking, not have to go through all the specific training.
What
there is
what are the criteria for being a judge?
There's people that go through all the judging classes and everything, and they know what they're looking at and they know how to score it, but they're not really martial artists, some of them, And I used to try to compare it with surfing, like judging surfing.
Mm-hmm.
You at least have to know what water is. Maybe been on a surfboard or something, I think, to surf contest. But then I thought about it more and well, if you knew all the tricks, you knew the criteria, you might be able to do a pretty good job if you've never been on a surfboard, just by the criteria.
Possibly, yeah.
But I feel like, somebody that's been there and done it, it will make a better judge. Just like a drug addict, somebody that was a drug addict before makes a better counselor, for people because they've been there, been down that.
What about UFC judging?
Compared to...
No, I mean, you did that too, right? You went from King of the Cage to UFC?
Yeah, I moved from King of the Cage to UFC, but I still would judge King of the Cage, when I could, and I judge Camo and the amateurs because I felt like it kept me sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Between the big shows, I work all the little shows I could just to keep me sharp for the big shows.
Okay.
And then looser, you had to be pretty, on the ball at the UFC, because you'll be under a lot of scrutiny. Right. Everybody's looking over your shoulder. Everybody's judging the fight. They're judging you. You're being judged. You're judging being judged too.
Yeah.
So pressure, but then you get to where it's not that much pressure. If you know what you're looking at, then there's not as much pressure if you know what you're doing and what you're looking at. But sometimes it's hard to judge, and it could go either way, and you're like, oh, it's hard to make a decision sometimes when the fight is really even.
Yeah.
We would have to come to a decision, either, a 10-9 or a 10-8. And sometimes it was difficult, but if it could go either, you're going to get in trouble.
Is there a connection between any kind of connection between judging and being an instructor? Any kind of connection?
Yes and no. I felt like judging, watching, and I study it, help my Jeet Kune Do, judging and studying MMA and cage fighting and UFC all those years. Definitely, I feel like it helped me, to become a better martial artist,
mm-hmm.
and to evolve a little bit in the right direction.
And then you spent time on Spike TV with the UFC. What was the show called?
Ultimate Fighter.
Ultimate Fighter, right? Yeah.
Well, by being a judge in Nevada, working the UFCs, I would be in the mix to work all the Ultimate Fighter shows. Tough. But Tough, we didn't get paid as much, and we felt like we were paying our dues to work Tough because we didn't get paid much, and then to be in the mix so we get a big assignment,
Yeah.
I'll work these little assignments and jump through all the hoops I need to get the big shows.
It sounds like it's
20.
anything else in the entertainment industry where you got to spend a little bit of time in the small projects like the big movies and what have you before you get into the big time, huh?
Yeah, you have to kind of work your way up. I was kind of lucky that I got involved when I did with King of the Cage and everything, and started building up my reputation as far as judging goes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have a lot of good stories, from judging the UFC all those years, brushing elbows with some of the best fighters, famous people, you name it.
Right.
Frank Mir, I did knife tapping with Frank Mir backstage at the UFC like 2 or 3 times, and we use our thumbs for knives. And he knew the U drill. Frank Mir knew the U drill.
How
the
so?
U drill.
How come?
Just, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but how come he knew it?
Well, he's open-minded. He trains in Kali and everything. I didn't know he was so open-minded. He's like a Jeet Kune Do guy, actually, Frank Mir.
Are there a lot of is it unknown how many JKD people or how much JKD has influenced UFC people?
I think it's influenced them more than people would realize.
Yeah.
Used to quite a few times I would see guys cornering for guys, and they'd be wearing a Jeet Kune Do jacket with the Jeet Kune Do logo.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, right on. I'd get all excited, but then they wouldn't be as excited as me.
Yeah, it's like I get excited when I see Joe Rogan wearing a Jeet Kune Do t-shirt on his show.
Yeah, and like Arnold Schwarzenegger wearing one. You see that picture? Like he's coming out of the gym and he's got a Jeet Kune Do shirt on.
Yep. There's him, and then there's Robert Downey Jr. I think there's one of him too.
Yeah, because he does Wing Chun too.
Right. Yeah.
He's really into it.
Yeah. All right. So we're in 2020, right? Are you still judging, or have you retired from that, or what do you do? I mean, what's your day consist of now?
Well, I get up and go to my school in the morning, and I train. I don't really have a morning class. I'm trying to get one built up, but I go down there and practice and train and clean the school.
Mm-hmm.
At night, I go back. I had a class. I was starting to build up some classes because I just reopened my school 6 months ago. I've been teaching in my garage and teaching private lessons for a couple years.
Okay.
And so I was hoping to build my school back up, and then all this happened, with the coronavirus and everything. So it's kind of put a damper on things, but I'm training with my son because we're around each other all the time. So I'm lucky I have him to practice and train with and train him.
Yeah.
But he had a fight 3 weeks ago that got canceled at the beginning of the month. It got canceled because of all this. At Dan Henderson's in Temecula, he was going to fight again. It would have been his 3rd amateur fight. And he's 1-1, but one of the fights, they stopped it too quick, I thought. But his 2nd fight, he choked the guy out. But yeah, I'm kind of happy that my son, I got him into this, but I feel like maybe I created a monster because now I don't want to see him fighting and getting punched in the face.
Yeah. That's something that one of my dialogue partners, Zane Isaacs, he said something like that to me. Says that after a while of being a coach, it's like these people that you care for, you don't want to see them risk getting beat up.
Right, exactly. They're like your children, your surrogate children. That's the way I look at my kids. They're like my children or surrogate children.
Yeah. That's interesting. Before he said that, I had never stopped to consider that at all. So has your school been the first school you opened up was when? In like the 90s, right?
Yeah, 1995 till 2008. I was in the same location, and then I started judging UFC in 2006.
Okay. So
I was there a couple years still judging for the UFC. Then I moved to a big school, like a big box school, I call it, like 3,000. It was $3,000 a month. It was 2,900 square feet, I think, or something. It was a pretty big place. But You know, I was making money there. I was doing pretty good, but I signed the lease in 2008. So right when the economy took a dive,
Yeah.
it was doing okay for a while, and then my numbers started to slip, and I had to move to a smaller place. You know, from $29.50 a month, I went to $900 a month, so I was doing okay then.
Yeah.
But
Hey,
then I got to another location around 2012. Usually I'd move around every couple years, but my first school, I was there for 12 years in the same location.
was that the one called Studio 104?
No, that was where Ray Rosales,
Yeah, that's what he just said.
I taught at Studio 104 before I opened my school. I taught there like once a week, and then I would drive all the way from there to the Insano Academy, and there wasn't traffic back then, and I would make it to the class on time. By 5:30, I'd be there.
Right.
And my class ended at like 3:30, I believe. No, at the end at 4:30. It took me an hour to get from San Clemente to LA back then.
Mm-hmm.
I would take you 2.5 hours probably.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Studio 104. I'm grateful for Ray to let me teach there for those years. It was nice. We were right across from Mother's Beach there at Doheny Beach, California.
So so that's the current plan now, when all this coronavirus stuff is done with, build back up the school, and that's what you're gonna do?
Yeah, I'm just going to try to get my numbers back up. I've got some private students, like 4 or 5 private students.
Right.
I keep teaching them, and I want to get more private students. I would like to branch out, maybe do a few more seminars. I don't know about traveling, you know, after all this, out of the country for a while.
Yeah.
My peers are feel the same way. But yeah, I want to teach more group classes. I like teaching individual, one-on-one, and then group classes, small groups.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's the buckshot method, you know, and then the single shot method of teaching. I have a small scatter gun. I'm trying to spread a teaspoon of knowledge around the whole world.
Yeah.
You know, I like to focus more on individuals and see how I can teach them and train them and watch them change. You know, like Bruce Lee said, he liked teaching people martial art because he liked to see how it changed the person.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. What,
Danny, you know, and Jeet Kune Do, like there's a lot of controversy, you know, but I think everybody needs to get together more and unite and exchange more ideas, and not original versus traditional Jeet Kune Do or
yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why, you know, why I started doing this, because I thought that people should hear, because there's so many Jeet Kune Do voices out there. I mean, you know, imagine if we could get Bill Gates or Chris Marcus on this show, right? You know, if we could go all the way back, right?
Yeah, I wonder what they're up to, or if they're still teaching and trading.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many people to hear from, and you know, and that's what got me started on this journey. You know, just to bring voices out of the woodwork, so to speak. You know, I always, well, not always, but whenever I remember, I always ask, who is somebody that you think you'd like to have to see me talk to on the show? Does anybody come to mind?
Not offhand, but
okay, good. Right. Don't say Burt Richardson, because I don't want to talk to him.
Rich still on here, Ray? You might want to get Ray Rosales on here.
Okay.
Or Krav.
I think I talked to Rycroft, but he was busy at the time or something. But I'll reach out again for sure.
You know, last year I did a seminar with Paul Lewis together, and we were supposed to do one on April 25th together. He was going to come out here to my school and do a joint seminar with me. He's under Larry Hartzell.
Yeah, I've reached out to him too. So yeah,
Paul would be a good guy to interview in the future too.
For sure.
I think he's like 3rd or 4th generation. I'm not sure exactly.
Okay.
He's under Hartzell and Gokar and Gene LaBelle He's got a lot of other training too.
All right. Cool.
But yeah, the no controversy, I think that we could squash it because the concept, I think if you know Jeet Kune Do concepts, I always felt you should know the original Jeet Kune Do, so to speak, as well, before you could even branch out into thinking you're a concepts instructor or Jeet Kune, how they created the controversy in the 90s with original Jeet Kune Do concepts.
Yeah.
It's, you know what I mean? It was more like a evolve. Well, I think what Danny and Sono wants everyone to research their own experiences.
Right.
Is what it's about. Researching experiences to come to your own conclusions. But there is shortcuts, and you can learn some of the shortcuts through different Jeet Kune Do instructors. Save time.
Yeah. I still find it incredible that you were doing the Muay Khmer, and I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago. I was with Inasano, and he started talking about it, and I'm thinking, okay, I hadn't heard much about it at all, and then I do the research on you, and I go, holy crap, Lester's been in this stuff for 20 years.
Well, I think Guru was surprised that I knew Omre so good, and me and Omre were hugging, and I was talking I was apologizing to Omre because I didn't fight for him because they wanted me to fight back then. Getting me ready to fight, but then what turned me off because they would tell me stuff like, "You kill in the ring, Lester, it's okay. Kill in the ring, it's okay." And then I was like, man, that was like kind of like, oh man, what other guys thinking that too? Well, they're not, and I hurt somebody real bad. That kind of like out a little bit, but then you think about Mike Tyson, how he was like an animal when he was fighting, and he didn't care.
Yep.
He rip people's heads off.
Hey, let me ask you this: what advice or recommendations do you have for people who are forced into this lockdown stuff? How do they maintain their sanity?
Forced into what?
Into this lockdown.
Oh, what to do during the lockdown?
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing a lot of training, probably as much as I did before, but it's just, I'm having to just change it up a little bit, and because all this uncertainty makes you kind of feel weird inside. But then once you start training for about 10 minutes, and you forget about all that.
Yeah.
And then where you start thinking about it again. But it's just kind of a weird for everybody right now.
I mean, you guys are able to, like, you're able to leave and go over to your school?
Yeah, my school's about a mile from my house, 1.5 miles, and I drive down there and unlock and go in the back, and then I'll train with my son, and my daughter came last night, and then
Okay.
I go down there in the morning, and then I go back at night because I'm so used to doing that, and so I'm just trying to keep on my schedule, and I was trying to just keep myself used to going to work,
Well, that's one of the things that I heard, that if you're at all able to maintain some semblance of your normal schedule, then that's something you should do.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it as much normalcy right now as possible with uncertainty and all the different stuff you hear. And I try not to, read too much of the stuff because I've already read most of it, and you hear a lot of the same news over and over. Yeah. But I want to make a shout out to all the first responders and the firemen and policemen and the stockers, the food servers, and the people that stock the shelves. They're doing a good job right now helping us all through this thing we're going through.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I wanted to do that in the beginning, when we first started.
All right, that's fine. Hey, well, listen, it's this is going to benefit me because you just convinced Richard Rykoff. He says he'll come on the program.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I was kind of afraid to come on here and expose myself. Need more exposure anyway. I've kind of been a little bit outspoken in the past, and I come in and out of my shell. Bert told me I was like a bear cub that never discovered his claws yet. And sometimes I find my claws, and then I hide them.
Yeah. I mean, look, everybody else that's into their thing is outspoken. So I've never really understood sometimes why some of us in JKD refrain from being outspoken.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes I wonder if it's a trait that we inherit from Inosano, you know, because sometimes he's not too outspoken.
Yeah, Mark Makita, I read an article Mark Makita wrote the other day. It was a really good one, you know, about, you know, people following an instructor blindly. It had something to do with that.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And then I read a good one that Matt Thornton posted the other day about aliveness.
Yep.
That one of the students wrote. It was really good. And then they talked about playing keep away with the ball and, you know, how to, you know, your movement instead of getting stuck in certain patterns, having more freedom.
Yeah. Did you see my dialogue with him, with Matt Thornton? Have you seen it?
Yeah, I watched the one with Matt Thornton, Ron Baliki, Burt Richardson, Paul Vunak.
Okay.
I've watched a couple other episodes with different people.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd really like to watch them because it's informative for me too.
Yeah.
You know, see how other teachers look at it, and other Jeet Kune Do teachers look at it, and their opinions and points of view. But I feel like the original Jeet Kune Do, or you know, and then the concepts people could come together, you know, because we're both really doing the same thing. We are really.
Ultimately, yeah.
In a different direction. It's the same tree with different branches and blossoms, you know?
Right. Yep.
The Jeet Kune Do tree. But I think Jeet Kune Do can enhance any other art. If you add some of the principles and concepts to other arts, it enhances them. You know, but like the Y and Z thing that you talk about, or somebody else that Bruce Lee said they can't be mixed.
Oh yeah, the letter to Poteet, yeah.
Yeah, if you look at it like algebra.
Right. Yeah, I was just talking to somebody yesterday, and they were telling me about Joe Rogan and how Joe Rogan is the one that came up with the name oblique kick. And I'm like, no, not really. Oblique kick has existed in JKD since forever, man.
So I worked the UFC, you know, and I went to their after parties. I've been to, you know, a bunch after. So I was talking with John Jones, you know, because I like the way I go, John, I like the way you do your oblique kick. He goes, what do you call it? I go, it's the oblique kick. And I showed him like 4 different ways to do it right on the spot. I showed him the Savat way, the mat strike kick. I showed him the Kali way where they snap it more. I showed him the, you know, Kukava. And he was like, his eyes popped out of his head, you know, and then that was like 10 years ago. And you notice he uses that. But he was using it back then. But I kind of like, you know, I was praising him for it.
Right.
And, yeah, I've had some close, funny encounters. I see Michael Bisping over there and like yell at him, hey, Michael. And he's like, hey, what? And I'll go, you're a good fighter. Those guys, you know?
Yeah.
I've actually got to show some moves to Uriah Faber before. And I go, Herb, I took Herb Dean to show him the gym at the Palms. I go, you want to go to the gym at the Palms? He's go, I've never been there. I go, I'll show you. Come on. And we go there, and Uriah Faber's there with Diego Sanchez. And I go, Herb, lay on your back real quick. I want to show these guys something. And Herb wouldn't lay on his back. And all of a sudden, Diego Sanchez just plops on his back. So I'm in Diego Sanchez's guard showing Uriah Faber some stuff. And I showed him this way to break somebody's leg. And Uriah goes, won't that break their leg? And I go, yeah, and you win the fight. Like, it was a kind of ruthless move, like from catch wrestling.
Yeah.
But he goes, won't that break their leg? And I go, yeah, but then you win the fight. And he comes his head, you know.
That's hilarious.
Diego, you know, dropped in his guard, and then Diego had a couple counters for my idea, and then I was like, oh yeah, but then this, you know, and then I had to recounter his idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I got to interact with quite a few of those guys occasionally.
Yeah.
And the fight with Randy Couture and Nogueira. I remember riding the elevator with Nogueira the next morning and tell him that was a good fight, and he's like, yeah, my nose is sore.
Did you judged an Anderson Silva fight? Did you? Did I read that correctly?
Rich Franklin, Anderson Silva won.
Right. Okay.
Silva just ragdolled him for the friggin', you know, and broke his nose and skip kneed the hell out of him.
Yeah.
And he didn't have no answers for the skip knee. I felt so sorry for Rich Franklin. He did not have one answer for the skip knee. And I knew 5 answers right on the spot. But then he was doing it correctly, though. Anderson Silva was doing it and moving them. He would skip knee and move them, skip knee and move them. And by moving them, he was throwing them off balance, and he couldn't counter them. And then he broke his nose bad. And then the second time, he did almost the same thing and broke his nose again. We gave Rich Franklin a rematch. Yeah, and I worked Babalu, Chuck Liddell off the top of my head. That one went pretty quick, too. I worked Affliction, both Affliction shows. Oh, Anderson, or it was Vanderlei Silva, Dan Henderson in Pride. It was like 2007, I think. And Henderson knocked out Vanderlei Silva. He finished him pretty quick. They dropped all the confetti. They used to drop the confetti at Pride. Remember? Did you ever watch Pride fights?
A little bit. No, I wasn't a big fan.
Yeah, they dropped the confetti at the end of the show. I filled my pockets with the confetti. I still had it at home, but I was going to throw the confetti on my fighters for good luck.
Right.
But I got the confetti at home, and if I could get a picture of that night when they dropped the confetti, I could put little strips of confetti in a frame with the photo and probably sell them.
Hey, what about where were you when Silva broke his shin?
I was there when it happened. I wasn't working that fight, but I was there.
What do you think of that?
I've been trying to tell John McCarthy for years about guntings and limb destructions.
Yeah.
Like backstage, and it would like kind of go over his head.
Right.
Go over his head. And then that happened, and I ran right up to him, and I go, "That was it. That's what I've been talking about." And he's like, it kind of still went over his head because they thought it was just an accidental check, and then they found Wyman did it on purpose, and he'd done it before in practice. But Ray Longo had interactions with Vunak before. Ray Longo was his trainer.
Yeah.
And remember those guys?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they knew about the gunting and break the leg with the gunting. They knew that technique.
Right.
You know, that's how it happened. It was kind of done on purpose. But Anderson Silva kind of threw a lazy kind of a kick. I don't know if it was a switch kick or a shuffle kick, but he kind of like cross blocked Chris Wyman, and then broke his leg right in half.
Yeah, man.
So I'm trying to show John McCarthy the elbow to the fist, destruction.
Yeah.
And the gunting to the bicep. And I'd always ask him questions, John McCarthy, to see what was legal and not legal. And then he'd go, well, you can't stomp a down opponent. Like if they were in the forward stance, and you stomp the back of the Achilles tendon after a C-lot sweep.
Yeah.
And you stomp the Achilles tendon.
Yeah.
And nobody does that in UFC, but you can't really stomp a downed opponent. But if they're against the fence in a long forward stance and you're trying to like gather the legs for a takedown, you can stomp the Achilles tendon right then before it touches the ground. Yeah. So if their knee on the ground, you couldn't do it.
Hey, did you spend any time with Eric Paulson?
Yes, I was lucky to spend some time with him. I took my son to a seminar of his a couple years ago, but one time the guru was gone on seminar, Eric was teaching his class, and Eric called on me to assist him all night long. I was stoked about that. I think he was teaching Muay Thai that night.
Okay.
And then Damon Cairo would teach sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of his name. There's another guy that used to teach the C-Lot class sometimes when Guru wasn't there.
John Spezzano?
Well, I remember John. He used to have long hair, real long hair. Do you remember? Yeah, back in the 80s and 90s. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know whose long hair I remember? Burton Richardson. Him and Chad Stahelski. Yeah,
Chad and Bert. Okay, Bert was teaching C-Lot to Mark Denny. Mark Denny asked me, hey, you want to go take C-Lot lessons? I'm going to take private lessons with Bert Richardson, but we need an assistant. So I would meet him at the Glencoe School like at 2 o'clock on Thursdays or a Friday every week for a while, and I was the assistant. I would be the guy getting beat up,
Yeah.
But I didn't have to pay for the lessons. I just had to show up and be the guy to get beat up. learn. And they would let me do a couple, but mainly I was there to get beat up on, but I was learning, at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was at the Glencoe school. I'd show up there and Eric Paulson's like teaching shoot boxing or something, and Chad's over there kicking the heavy bag.
Yeah.
The Glencoe school, that's where Brandon Lee took his Muay Thai test.
Right.
And I was there for that. But there was they had a knife sparring tournament with the IMB versus Marina Del Rey.
No, really? I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was in the 90s, and I have a VHS tape of it.
Oh my God.
It was IMB versus the Marina Del Rey. I was training with Vunak then.
Yeah.
And then about it, we all went up there to watch it. And then you could buy the videotape, and I bought it. I have it somewhere. It's on VHS. But there's a part where Mark Baloff, do you know Mark Baloff?
Yeah, I remember Mark. Yeah.
He kicked what's his name in the eye? He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu now, Chris Howder.
Oh my God.
He kicked Chris Howder in the eye like with a shuffle kick, but it was like a cheap shot, and Chris Howder's eye was black, it was bad. I don't know how bad it was, but it looked bad. But I was really kind of pissed off about it because I thought Mark Baloff did a cheap shot.
Oh,
Yeah. No, Chris Howder remembers it. If he's out there somewhere, but Chris Howder's, under the Machados. He has a black belt with the Machados, doesn't he?
That I'm not sure of, but Chris, he's spent a lot of time, or spends a lot of time with Matt Thornton, right?
Yeah, they're affiliated.
Yeah,
he had videotapes on T-shirt chokes for a while with the Straight Blast Gym videos years ago.
Yeah.
I appeared on some of those with Burt Richardson.
Yep, that I remember. You had your own video series at one point too, didn't you? Like early on.
I did a few of them. I had planned to do some more, but I did 4. I did one on like Jeet Kune Do concepts, but if I could do that one over, I would do it over. Mm-hmm. And I did real contact stick fighting. I was the first one to branch out and do a video on my own out of the Dog Brothers. I got scolded for that, but I didn't call it Dog Brother stick fighting. I called it real contact stick fighting with dog Lester Griffin. But I showed something on the tape that I actually got scolded for. But, it's still kind of secret, I think, still, too, because you don't hear much talk about it.
Uh-huh.
A particular thing I showed on the tape, and they told me, you shouldn't have showed that, Lester.
Oh, man.
Too many people my tape, so it's not really out there.
Yeah.
It was a strategy that Eric Canals would use in his stick fighting. He would have a strategy that he used.
Mm-hmm.
And, they didn't really want it out to the general public. It was like when the Navy SEALs told the Dog Brothers, hey, don't teach the fang choke to anybody. And we're like, it's too late. It's on tape 3. Millions to know it. The fang choke. You know the fang choke?
I've heard of it. I think I've seen Denny doing it.
It's like a headlock, and you stick the puño in their neck.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got them in a headlock.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple variations. I pulled it off twice in a Dog Brother gathering.
Yeah.
It worked beautifully. That was the one I did the judo throw, landed in like a side control kind of, or a headlock position, got the fang right away, and the fight was over.
Wow.
I wish I would have fought more. The only thing with the Dog Brothers, I kind of wish I would have fought more when I was younger and more able to do it physically.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of tempted to do it now because I'm in pretty good shape since I got my hip fixed 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's just I worry about like landing on my hip if somebody takes me down.
Well, do they have a masters division?
They thought about having some fights, and they call them old fart fights. But, I don't want to go out there and have to take it easy on each other. If we're going to do it, we got to just do it,
All right. Well, listen, Lester, it's been fun, man. Those are some incredible stories. We'll do this. We'll do this another time, right?
Has it already been an hour?
It's been an hour and 15 minutes, buddy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I could go longer. There's more to talk about.
Well, Ray Rosales says, ask him about Stinky Stick.
Yeah, give a dog a bone. Give a dog a bone. There's quite a few different names for some of the techniques that we do in Dog Brothers.
Uh-huh. Who comes up with those names? Benny?
Yeah. We got the camel toe. That's almost like Stinky Stick is the camel toe. It's like a high crotch with the stick. Hello?
Yeah, no, I heard you said it's like a high crotch with the stick.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I wanted to talk more about the Jeet Kune Do, and the people that don't agree with each other.
Well, what's your? I mean, I refrain from asking you about that because sometimes I think that discussion, gosh, it's decades old. But what do you think? What do you think went wrong?
It's hard to say. Just everybody thinking that their way is the right way, I guess. Different camps, different the different people that learned under Bruce Lee, and then people learned from all those different people, but they didn't get to learn from every one of them. Because I only learned from Paul Vunak, Bert Richardson, Mark Denny, Danny Insano, Hartzell, and I did the Muay Thai and Savat, and then the Jitsu, and I did the Bondo. One of the best times I went to the Bondo seminar at Boxing Works with Dr. G, and Mike Maya was there for his assistant, and there was only like 6 or 8 of us there, and it was like a gloomy morning, and all of a sudden this guy walks in the door. It's Danny Insano walks in the door. He's participating in the seminar, right? And then Guru Dan was my assistant, or I was his assistant. We were partners the whole day. Mm-hmm. Me and Danny Insano were partners the whole day at the Bondo seminar. That was like one of the best times ever,
Sure.
Having Danny Insano as your partner. G beat up on me a lot that day. I remember I was driving home looking in the rearview mirror and I had bruises all over my face.
Yeah. So the list of names that you just gave, so you never trained with like Wong or Jerry Poteet or any of those guys from the Chinatown school?
No, I would have liked to gotten to train with some of those, like Jerry Poteet came and watched the Vunak seminar one time, but he didn't show anything. He just stood there and watched with Fran. Mm-hmm. And then I would have liked to got to train with Ted Wong or Taki. Mm-hmm. So I'm open to, checking out and filling in, seeing what maybe I missed out on something along the way. I'd like to see, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
I'm open to learn because I went to the Mark Stewart seminar last year in Chinatown, just to see what, I like to learn from all the different resources that I can still. I don't feel like I know it all yet. I feel like as soon as you think you know it all, you're going to stop learning or your mind's going to close up.
Yeah. Well, Eric Carr had been doing stuff there on the weekends at the Chinatown school. Did you hear about that?
Does he teach a class there every Saturday or something?
I don't know if it's a regular ongoing thing, but he's done a couple of sessions at 628 College Street.
Yeah, I know they rented out Bruce Lee's old school and had held a seminar a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to the Mark Stewart seminar last June, like 5th, I think it was. And if he's supposed to have another one this June, I might go if it's not canceled because of the coronavirus.
Right. Yeah. Well. Yeah, we got to put our lives on hold for a lot of that stuff now.
Excuse me?
We got to put our lives on hold for a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I almost forgot about it talking to you.
Well, that's good.
living in the moment, and then you forget about all this that's going on outside.
Yeah, I like what you said about the training, you know, how the training can displace it, you know, take your mind off of all of it. I think that's very true.
Well, definitely. You get lost in your practice, I call it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hey, everybody, including me, has been putting out solo training videos all over social media. You should do that. You should go down to school and film something.
I was filming a lot more in 2016 and 2017. Then my phone got filled up. I got about 5 seconds on my thing. I got a big phone, and then I could start to film some videos, because I've been training every Thursday night with my son for a year, getting him ready for fighting.
Yeah.
And we only took pictures one time, and him and I could have had over 200 YouTube videos by now.
Yeah.
You know, we just don't have a photographer or somebody to come video us.
Well, somebody has to teach you how to take the videos off your phone so that your drive isn't full.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to put them on a chip or something, or download them to the computer.
Yeah, you got to, and then there you can. I'm looking around to see if I have it here, but so this is one of the setups that I have. So with this is what I can use my phone on, like a tripod like this. So if you get an attachment like this and put it on the tripod, then you don't need it. You don't need somebody. You don't need a photographer. You just you just set it up yourself. So, but yeah, man, put your stuff out there. You were an original. I mean, your stuff was on VHS. That's how long ago it was.
VHS?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I made all mine on VHS. I transferred some to DVD. Probably my best one is the stick fighting one. I have one on Savate, and I had one on Muay Thai.
Uh-huh.
And the Jeet Kune Do concepts. But I don't know if you're familiar with Don Warner.
Yeah, I know who he is. I get his emails all the time. Don Warner Entertainment, right?
Right. He bought rights to 3 of my tapes, and then he sold them for a while. I didn't get too much residuals. My tapes are being sold out there, but I'm not getting paid for any of it. You know, they've been sold for a while, and I never got any money back.
That's not so good.
Oh, I know. I was supposed to get like $5 a videotape or something. And just, you know, my wife's working on trying to get some of that money back for me for the sales. But they're selling my tapes on like eBay and selling them on Amazon and Sears. And I'm like, somebody must have bootlegged one of my VHS and turned it to DVD and started selling them. But I just kind of wonder if Don Warner's still selling them or not. And I haven't really reached out to him. The last time I reached out to him, he said he wasn't selling very many. But then I see that they're being sold around different places, you know.
Yeah.
All right. I have to get myself out there more and do some more DVDs and videos. Put them out there.
I mean, look, everybody should. Everybody should, because there's such a wealth of information, and sometimes it's really varied information, you know, even though all of us come from the same root and what have you. Everybody has their own, you know, their own touch that they apply to what they show. And so I think there should be. Look at how many different Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu videos there are out there.
Right.
You know, everybody's got a set of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tapes. So why can't we have a ton of different Jeet Kune Do tapes? Come on, it's ludicrous.
Yeah, I had a good name for a Jeet Kune Do series. I can't think of it right now. Will the real Jeet Kune Do please stand up? The truth. Remember, to tell the truth. And they go, will so and so please stand up? Stand up. But I think that No, people can all learn from each other and open their minds and try to have an open mind.
Yeah, but sometimes that seems to be like a really difficult thing for some people to do, you know?
Yeah, I don't know why. Because my Jeet Kune Do has a Jeet sprawl. You know, a Jeet sprawl, intercepting sprawl, right?
Okay.
And some people might say that you can't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like they get past your Jik Tech, Juk Tech, Now Tech, your Bilgi, they get past your Pak Sao, then what?
Jeet sprawl, yeah.
Could not get past the other guy's jab. He could not get past his jab, you know? If your jab's that good, you know, but I think, you know, I always say too, martial art doesn't make you invincible. It just makes you better able to handle yourself.
Right.
But I sense from a lot of Jeet Kune Do guys that the way they talk is like they're invincible. You know? It doesn't make you invincible.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to destroy your arm with a Pak Sao. Okay, good luck getting that Pak Sao. You're going to get kicked in the leg before you even, you know, if they're sitting there looking for a Pak Sao, they're going to get hit with something else.
Right.
But, you know, I can do a pretty hard Pak Sao myself, and I've pulled it off in sparring with my son. But I kind of have to set it up, like, you know.
Of course. Of course.
But I didn't sense I was going to destroy his arm with it. You know, I practice Pak Saos on my Wing Chun dummy, you know, and I can Pak Sao pretty hard, but I don't think I'll destroy their arm. But I used to feel like my Bilgi, I designed my Bilgi to cause brain damage. Instead of eye damage, you're going to go so deep you cause brain damage. You know what I mean, though?
Yeah.
You might as well cause brain damage instead of eye, go through the eye.
That's funny.
But you know how Bruce said it had it narrowed down where you could beat anybody with an eye jab?
Yeah, I've heard something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of true. You know, if after you poke somebody in the eye, then you can follow up. You know, if you have to, then they're pretty. But you know, if you can't poke them in the eye, then you might have trouble.
All right. Hey, listen, Matt, I'm gonna have to cut this off here because it's gonna take me forever to convert 87 minutes, an hour and a half. I'm gonna be up all night editing and converting this and then trying to put it up on YouTube. But I'll have it up there. I'll have it up there probably by this time tomorrow, by 7 p.m. tomorrow.
All right, thanks, man. Yeah, my private lessons usually are 1 hour, but they turn into 2 hours sometime, and I feel like I'm holding my students hostage. I'll just show you one more thing.
That's a typical true JKD guy.
Yeah, that's the way I am. Sometimes my private lessons turn into 2 hour lessons, and it's supposed to be 1 hour.
Yeah.
But I don't charge. I'm just grateful that I have somebody there to practice and teach.
I hear you. I hear you. It's all good. All right, Lester Griffin, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate this.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it too as well. Thank you.
All right, okay. You take care. Be safe now, all right?
Yeah, be safe out there. All right, Thank you.
All right, man. Take care.
Okay, bye.